When I was giving you a tour at this year's Japan Mobility Show of the new Toyota Century Coupe, the biggest question I had was what is under the hood? Now, most of us expected a battery electric car. However, when you're going up against Rolls-Royce, buyers in that class don't want an electric gimmick. They want something very special. They want something mechanically made. They want the feel, the smoothness, the power, and the exclusivity of a specific type of engine. A V8, hey, they're great, but that's not several $100,000 worth of technology that they want under the hood. And maybe, just maybe, if they had solid state batteries, they could possibly charge that much. But even then, people really don't care about luxury EVs in most of the world. But news now just breaking out of Japan from Magazine X or MagX. They are, I would say, the second most reliable source of information out of the scoop magazines from Japan. They are claiming that the new Toyota Century will not just have an engine that you can't get in Toyota, but it's an engine configuration that Toyota once employed in the second generation Toyota Century. This website's over 15 years old, but it's still a wealth of knowledge. In the early days, Toyota had even a Boxer 2-cylinder engine, similar to what BMW uses on their motorcycles. Inline 3s, now keep in mind, this was early 2010s here when this chart came out. So we're not going to have any of the newer engines in here, especially the new turbo engines. But look what they did have at the very bottom. They had V10, right here in the LFA, which we'll probably never ever see again from Toyota, a V10. It was a one and done. Rest in peace, 1LR. But the V12 was employed in the Toyota Century. So here's the Toyota Century, and that was also at the Japan Mobility Show. And I knew full well it had the V12 under the hood. It was about 5 liters. The 1GZFE, you know, due to the gentleman's agreement, it only produced around 280 horsepower. In other markets, is closer to 300 horsepower. It had 2 fuel controllers. I mean, it's almost like it had two JZ engines in there. I know the displacement's different because a 1JZ or 2JZ engine, those were 3-liter displacements. But anyways, you had 2 different fuel controllers, and that helped in the case of an emergency. Let's say if one side of the engine failed, the other side of the engine was fine. It had its own autonomy essentially, and the car could run in 6-cylinder mode. This was way before electrification. And sadly, this engine was replaced by electrification in the form of a hybrid V8 with a CVT. Now, I've driven this powertrain before in the LS 600HL, but it lived on, and in fact, it still lives on in the 3rd generation Century, which came out in 2018. Here at the Toyota Century webpage, which launched around, well, when the brand launched, around the Japan Mobility Show this past fall. It went from V8 from the 1st generation Century to V12, back to V8, but hybrid. All right, with the 3rd gen. Now, there's also the Century SUV, which of course already outsells the Century sedan. The Century SUV, it shares a lot with the Toyota Grand Highlander. In fact, it has the same powertrain as the Lexus TX 500, or sorry, is it 5? It's 550H Plus. I just reviewed it for the first time at the end of the year. It's fantastic. Or the powertrain's fantastic, in my opinion. It needs more range. That's its greatest downfall. Toyota looks to be combining what made the Century so special for a long time, and that was its V12 silky smooth powertrain. And they're going to be combining it now, according to MagX, they're combining it with a plug-in hybrid setup. All right. They don't know the transmission quite yet. They're saying it's going to be an 8 or a 10-speed transmission. And between the V12, which is going to be turbo, mind you, between the V12 and the 8-speed auto or 10-speed, whatever they end up using, is going to be an electric motor. And that's going to send power to the rear wheels, of course, into this coupe. Now, of course, this powertrain could also be slotted into not the Century SUV because that's a front wheel drive bias architecture, but it could be slotted into the true sedan version of this as well. Is MagX 100% right about knowing that this is a V12? They might know something we don't, or Toyota obviously hasn't communicated whether this is going to be a BEV or not. I sure hope it's a V12. If they have to plug in hybrid it to come to the market, then so be it. But V12 sounds great to me. And now I can, like, without hesitation, say that this car belongs in the class that it's entering. And with V12 at its disposal, no mechanical linkage to the front wheels is my estimation. Toyota shouldn't have any issue, though, still providing all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is what Toyota calls it. Now, we haven't seen Toyota implement an all-wheel drive that this will be capable of. All right, so again, you have the engine that goes to an electric motor that then goes to the transmission, and then that powers a drive shaft to the rear wheels. Pretty simple. And so if you have battery juice, then you won't need it. And I know if you look under here, you can see the reflection. It's all flat. That signifies BEV. I understand. All right. But this could just be a complete prototype. All right. Meaning, or even a concept or a model that is not a real working version. Okay. But we know this vehicle has a really long hood. And within that, why have such a long hood other than just for style? Because we know long hoods look great. But hey, if now you put a V12 under there and it could be something very special. I'm trying to explain the all-wheel drive here. You could have all-wheel drive in so much as that the front wheels would be powered by 1 or 2 electric motors. It's not that much different than what Acura used to do with the NSX, for example. The NSX twin turbo V6, I know it was mid-engine, but that was connected to electric motor, then the automatic dual clutch. Okay, but in the front, to power the front wheels, you had electric motors, 2 of them for torque vectoring and true all 4-wheel drive. This could do the exact same thing. You know, really small motors up front, really, like, they're not going to be that powerful, but it could give it all-wheel drive just to say that it has all-wheel drive. Even if this has a V12, will this be a vehicle that Toyota is going to be successful for or with in the high-end luxury market? Anything's possible. Anything's possible. I just don't operate or exist in that high-end luxury world. I would assume that it's capable of holding its own. It will be sold exclusively through certified and qualified Century dealerships that exist in a bubble inside of a Lexus dealership throughout the world. It'll be very expensive for those dealerships to even consider to be a Century dealership, just like it is expensive for them to even consider if they should be a GR dealer as well. And as a Toyota fan, how about this, guys? Instead of, salivating over this Century, this coupe Century that could have a V12. Again, we're just talking about possibilities here. A turbo V12 plug-in hybrid, 800 horsepower, or whatever it's going to be. How about you just import a Toyota Century with a V12? They were produced from 97 to 2017. All right, so we can look at, I'm over at JDM Buy Sell, not sponsored. You can get the hearse. Getting a hearse with a V12, that's a bit sadistic, but I love it. $20,000 to $30,000 depending on mileage or KMs, depending on wear and tear. Right, your Century, you can get a Century with a V12 in America for less than what like a new Altima costs. Like, this is a no-brainer to me. If you have 25K. And if you don't, you can't just go to the Toyota dealership and get financed for this one of these things, right? You got to have cold hard cash. So it's still a very like exclusive high end sort of vehicle here, the V12. But man, it's a lot more attainable than something that could cost $250 to $400,000 in that Century Coupe V12 turbo plug-in hybrid thing. This is all the V12 I would ever need. Let's go ahead and click on this one here. She's looking clean. Gotta love the handcrafted metalworked Phoenix badge. Just amazing. Look at this thing, looking so sleek. All Centuries came in black. That's not the case anymore. All right, you can, well, at least outside of the sedan. I think the sedan is only black. All right, but Century, like, I just want to drive this thing around and listen. Look at this. Look how nice that is, right? This wood. Are you kidding me? I mean, this screen is definitely newer than the car, which I'm sure replaced its tape deck or something. But look at this. Look at this clock here. Oh man, only 75Ks, baby. You could be one of one with a V12 once again for the Toyota Century. But we'll see where this brand eventually goes and how expensive it will be, how many different models they will offer, if V12 is a reality, or should I say a reality once again in the Century lineup. Thank you guys. I'm still getting a bit better. Still no face camera time. I'll get back to it when I feel up to it. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the comments. Long live the V12.